We've seen preseason PP, but could we be gearing up to see playoff PP? Payton Pritchard is playing his best basketball throughout the month of March. That's exactly what you want for your players, playing their best basketball of the year heading into the playoffs, but can he keep it up? We're going to break that down here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Allie Barefoot, and before we get started in talking about what Payton Pritchard has been doing for the Boston Celtics, I want you guys to go ahead and hit that sub button for me if you want us to go live for every single playoff game. Boss has said we have to have 25,000 subscribers if we want to go live for the playoffs. As of right now, we're at 24,653. I think we can do it, but it starts with you guys. Go ahead and hit that sub button for everything and all things Boston Celtics. Let's break down preseason PP real quick. We're going to throw it all the way back to October, which feels like a lifetime ago. Pritchard was going off, about 16 points per game, nearly 5 assists, 41% from the field, and 35% from a three-point line. Before you guys are in the comments saying, but it was the preseason. I don't care. When you're a bench player, preseason is a big time for you to show out, going up against sometimes starters for the actual NBA opponents. And Payton Pritchard also earned himself a 4-year contract, which he did sign before the regular season. And I personally do not think that contract would have come before the season if he had not gone off in the preseason the way that he did. However, he did start to fall a little bit off in the regular season, which is very natural for a bench player to do because he's not getting as many minutes as he was getting in the preseason. However, in December, about 9 points per game, which is not bad at all for a player that's only playing 13 games throughout the month of December. 3.3 assists, 44% from the field. And as you can see, around that 44% happened for the next 2 months. But in February, he started to kick it up a notch. 37.5% from the three-point line, 49% from the field, 8.5 points per game. But now look at the month of March. He's playing his best basketball of the season, 11 points per game, 4 assists, 50% from the field, and 45% from the three-point line. And a lot of people are going to look at the stats and be like, wow, he's actually a baller. Kind of looking a little bit like he did in his Oregon days when he played for 4 straight years. But a lot of people really don't credit what he's doing on the other side of the ball, the defensive side, the way that he is constantly crashing to the board, the way that he is secretly setting pick and rolls and just spreading out everything that he possibly can on both sides of the ball. The defense is definitely stepping up, but the offense is still there as well. We've seen it on both sides, but Joe Mazzulla here has seen it from the beginning. He said about Payton Pritchard's game, he said he's a pretty complete player from the standpoint of, I trust his defense. He can defend at a high level. He can rebound defensively and offensively. He can push the pace. He can shoot. He's just continuing to get better and better all the time. And that's just the player he is. Sometimes I do forget that he's actually older than 26-year-old Jason Tatum because Payton Pritchard played all 4 years at Oregon and he started all 4 years. But like we said, while his offensive game is continuously getting better, his defense has been solid the entire year. Producer Smitty found this stat here for me saying Pritchard has also grabbed the most rebounds of his career in this season. His efforts on both ends has earned him more minutes. We saw him playing last night against the Bucks, 31 minutes, and that is unusual for a bench player. It truly is, especially when the Boston Celtics are number 1 seed in the East and the Bucks are number 2. And I know there was a lot of speculation about whether or not the Celtics were blowing that lead and yada, yada, yada. But the fact to have Payton Pritchard in the closing lineup speaks pretty highly of what PP has done so far. So I have a question to ask you guys as we are 14 games away from the end of the regular season. Payton Pritchard right now is averaging 21.1 minutes per game. So my question to you guys is, do you think Payton Pritchard should be playing more or less than 21 minutes per game through the next 14 games of the regular season? We'll talk about playoffs when it's the time, but I do think that he needs to get all the exposure that he can right now. So going ahead and type M for more, type L for less. If you guys did just comment that, well, you've already pretty much played Prize Picks, so you might as well head on down to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use promo code CLNS. And let me tell you what happens when you do get there. You're going to pick between 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less on their projected stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money on any entry. Plus, they've got specials for new and returning users for March Madness when you head over to prizepicks.com/CLNS. If you guys have not played this before, I highly suggest doing it right now. Why? Because March is the best time of the year for basketball. Today is the first day of the NCAA Men's March Madness Tournament. I know you guys have your brackets filled out, so why not test your skills just a little bit more? That's exactly what I'm doing on Prize Picks here. Of course, I'm going to take Holmes to have more than 19.5 points. I'm going to have Blackshear to have more than 4.5 rebounds, and Cunningham to have at least 1 steal. I wanted to throw a Goblin in there because there's a lot riding on March Madness, and as you guys can see, it doesn't really play out for a lot of people's brackets, so I want to make sure my Prize Picks are pretty good. So the Goblin here is a easier pick, but it doesn't pay as much. The Demon, harder pick, and it pays a lot more. So if you guys really want to test your skills in March Madness, go ahead and select a Demon. I'm going to go with a Goblin, and you can go on ahead and make your picks right now at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use promo code CLNS and get a first-time deposit match of $100. prizepicks.com/CLNS. Pick more, pick less. It is truly that easy. I want to bring it back to last night here just for a moment. While Bobby Portis did pop off in the fourth quarter, really made that lead kind of tight for the Celtics, they never gave up the lead, which is the main thing. However, I want to talk about Payton Pritchard specifically. I saw a different side of Payton Pritchard that I have not seen this season, and let me tell you, he went up on my rankings for the Celtics this season. Payton Pritchard showed that he has a dog in him. Payton Pritchard's not the biggest guy on the team. We all know that. However, when Pat Beverly decided to do the too small on Luke Kornet, not once but twice, Luke Kornet never gives me the vibes that he's actually going to stick up for himself or he's going to get into a fight, blah, 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 blah. I didn't think PP was like that either until he started to scuffle with Brook Lopez and he started popping off against Pat Beverly. And he said, don't disrespect my teammate like that. Don't you dare give him the too small. And Payton Pritchard, being one of the smaller guys on the team, showed him the dog that he has in himself and the Celtics have in each other. And Doc Rivers even pointed out what the difference Pritchard can make when he comes in to the ballgame. Doc Rivers said, look, I thought the first half we played pretty great offensively. And that bench unit, it's just Pritchard happened. It's kind of like when shit happens, but Pritchard happens. He had 19 points, 6 rebounds, went 7 for 11 from the field, shooting 63%, 5 for 8 from the three-point line, shooting 62%. He was lights out, could not miss, but he was doing things outside of the box score that also stood out to me. And I thought it was pretty great that Jason Tatum's the leading rebounder pretty much every single night for the Celtics, but he tied with Payton Pritchard that night for the lead in rebounds, showing that not only can he shoot offensively, scoring 19 points, but he can clean the glass as well. It does not matter about his height. He's aggressive. And when Pritchard is aggressive, it's a different ballgame, I'm telling you. Jay King pointed this out about what he said to Pat Beverly and what got it really under his skin. He said, look, he didn't like Bev's too small gesture to Luke Kornet, and I feel like he was trying to clown one of our teammates, so I definitely took that a little personal. The fact that these teammates are backing up one another and not so much getting into fights with the other team, but using it to ignite a spark in your own team. You cannot tell me that's not mama mentality. You cannot tell me there is not a dog in the Celtics locker room right now that it looks like no other team in the NBA has. The Celtics are looking absolutely solid right now. And when you talk about the bench unit as a whole, like Doc Rivers said, that bench unit came swinging last night against the number 2 team, which Payton Pritchard also pointed out, that was like a playoff game to them. That's how they felt when they went to that atmosphere at TD Garden. The bench has been popping off in the month of March, and I really hope it's not a fluke, and I hope they can take it back into the months of April, May, and June. But if they can keep this up, I don't see how the Celtics can't win banner 18. Look at what PP and Sam Hauser have been doing through this whole entire season. They're actually starting to come together. They're both scoring the same amount of points per game. The rebounds are pretty much neck and neck. Payton Pritchard is definitely more of a facilitator. Sam Hauser is more of a catch-and-shoot kind of guy, so that makes sense to have nearly 3 assists for Payton Pritchard. Shooting about the same from the field goal, but obviously Sam Hauser's specialty is hitting it from downtown. So the backcourt looks pretty solid if Drew Holiday and Derek White do want to take a rest. Most of the time, these two players aren't really playing next to each other without a starter on the court, but it's good to know they can if they really want to knock it down. And I want to bring out the big man here real quick. You guys know I was not a fan of Luke Kornet through the first 30 games. He was not my cup of tea. My bad, Mr. K. It looks like he's decided to step it up because in the last 21 games, nearly every single category has gotten better for his performance. 66.8% from the field, still averaging a block per game, nearly 1 assist, 4.5 rebounds and nearly 6 points. Luke Kornet is proving that he can step up when KP and Al Horford need to take a rest. They've also been playing a lot of Tillman recently as well, but I think Kornet has now become one of my favorite big men that's going to be a backup for the Celtics. And even if he's not going to be as aggressive as Payton Pritchard, it's good to know that the C's are there to back him up as well. Not to mention, when things get tough, I love the enthusiasm and personality Luke Kornet shows during the games. He really reminds you guys, look, we're having fun out here. Take it easy. Play the ball that we know. The C's bench currently has the third fewest minutes per game in the NBA. They're averaging about 15.7 minutes, normally out of about 35. So that makes a lot of sense for the team that's number one. They have the best starting six in the NBA. However, in the next 14 games, I need to see this bench playing a lot more than they normally are. There are only about 3 games you can call the Bucks, the Thunder, the Knicks, maybe the Kings if you want to add a fourth, that really are going to be tough contests in the next 14 games. I need the bench showing up in those. Why? Because when playoffs come, I do not want them to be starstruck and not know what the hell is going on. So I think they need to have excessive minutes in the next 14 games. Even if that means dropping one of those games, losing to the Kings, the Bucks, the Knicks, that's okay. They're 10 games ahead of the Bucks. They're not catching up. They'll secure the first seed, and they've already clinched the playoffs. So the fact that Payton Pritchard said the bench, the stay ready group is what they call them, as a chip on their shoulder makes me that much more excited for the playoffs. Payton Pritchard said we're not just trying to prove ourselves wrong, but we're trying to prove the media wrong. Since the beginning of the season, the bench has been a very weak point for the very good Boston Celtics, and the bench is now showing, hey, we're just as good as any other bench in the NBA, and we're going to watch and show you what we can do here when it comes to the playoffs. So keep that chip on your shoulder, and let's ride into the playoffs. Who's your favorite Celtics bench player so far this season? Personally, I love a good catch-and-shoot three-pointer, so I do think I am going to give Sam Hauser my favorite bench player to come off. I do love that. If you want to count Al Horford in there, you definitely can. I always put Al Horford in the same group as the starters, but he is technically a bench player this season. So go ahead and drop your favorite Celtics role player down below. And while you guys are there, like I said, we got to get to 25,000 subscribers if you want to go live for the playoffs. We're at 24,653 currently. So all you guys got to do, hit that sub button.